God, never done that before in my life.
We'll see if this works. All right, check. Check. I can't tell if this is working. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Check.
Come on, funny. And that lineup here, you didn't play with Polozov. You were with Siggy together, Martin Lee, Atwell, and Keegan.
When?
That's what it says here in the lineup. I can't believe I did that.
What game though?
Stampede.
For the final? Check. Test. Check. Here, can you give me a couple checks?
Ja, klar. Check. Hello.
Ja, klar.
Deutsch. Aber selbstverständlich.
Das ist Deutsch für mich.
Give me a couple checks.
Ja, klar. Check.
That's really clear.
Hello. Yeah. Sits right here underneath me.
Is yours on you?
Oh, in the final. What is this here?
That one sounded really clear.
In the final as well. Polozov, Sam Moses, Huber Georg, Ian Wanamaker. Who wrote these lineups on the stats? On this bloody, that's not right.
Yeah, they probably got it all wrong.
It's all wrong here.
Often the stats right, and then the wrong guys.
It's just bullshit. Oh my God.
All right, coach. I'm gonna get some water. I hope this works.
I've not even dressed up. I haven't even had a haircut the last 4 months. Yeah, on the side, yeah. Yeah, a little bit of trimming here.
All right, coach. Welcome to Boston. We're here. You've had your round the world trip with your lovely daughter Jamie, and throughout this whole weekend, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the good times we spent back in 2011. Now, I was an import player coming into the team new, but you had been established as a coach in the NZIHL for the past
6 years.
6 years,
Yeah.
and you'd already seen some success. In 2010, for the season, you had already won the championship for the Botany Swarm, and we're here to talk a little bit about the 2011 season and also get to know your experience in the NZIHL. So why don't you start us off with just go over some of your highlights of your NZIHL career as a coach. What are the 3 or 4 proudest moments you've had as a coach?
Our proudest moment was that I was able to form such a young team from 2005 through all these years and lead them to the championships and could form them, and they trusted me and had that great leadership coming up from these players like Andrew Hay and others in the team, including the imports. Many of them took leadership roles over these years. And it was just success over these years that they were so young when I started with them in 2005. Majority of them were junior players. And over these 4 or 5 years, they had all these experiences with losing a final and then winning championship again, and then having a bad season in 2009. So they experienced all the up and downs of a hockey player, and I think for all of them that formed quite a lot in their hockey life, but also in their personal life, that they always have to work hard for things. And I think that was the guarantee that, or not the guarantee, but it was a strong reminder of them in 2010 and 11. They need to work hard if they want to keep on top of the game.
So talk to us about the 2010 season. What do you remember most about that team? What made it special, and what do you remember significantly that led to the championship in the 2010 season?
I think in detail 2010 I can't remember too much, but what I definitely know is that the 10 season was, they looked for redemption. I think they looked for redemption because they had a shitty is maybe an over exaggeration of what it is, but they didn't have a good season, because I think many of them thought, oh yeah, we won a championship in 2008 and we show up to practice and blah blah blah. And I think if you get hunted by other teams who are desperate to win the championship, it's much harder to stay on the top, and they didn't realize that. And then I think that lesson learned from 2009, losing or not being at all in the competition for a championship, made many of them realize we have to work harder. And I think some of the senior players then as well learned that, maybe you can say the hard way, but I think it's a good thing that it happened.
So you guys won the 2010 season. Do you remember who you played against?
2010 was against the Admirals, if I'm not getting it wrong now.
You can check.
Yeah, it was the Admirals, I think. We played in. Let me check quickly. I'm pretty sure it was. It was 2000 against you. 2000.
I was the next season, 2011.
Yeah, you played against the Stampede.
The Stampede.
Yeah, it must be the Admirals. Yeah, we had the final against the Admirals in Botany.
And was there any sort of standout plays or players in 2010 that like who are some of the standouts that you remember, or was there like a specific play?
All these two Finnish players the Admirals had, they were really outstanding. They were outstanding players, and I think from my point of view, they carried the Admirals team to that final.
Yeah, but coach, what about the Swarm?
Swarm.
You had a bunch of great players.
Yeah, because I think we were just an overall good team in all the lines we had. We didn't. You didn't have not to discredit the Admirals what they achieved, but I think overall we had a more balanced team in the lines, including the foreigners we had, to get to that final again and have a home final as well. We were just more balanced in that regard. So
let's talk about the 2011 season. You and I were looking up some things on Elite Prospects earlier. We're looking up some stats.
Yeah.
And what I remember from that season is we came down, we had some practices, and I was feeling really good about the team.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how we would compare against the other teams in the league. So the first game was an exhibition game against the Christchurch Red Devils. It was a charity game to benefit those that sort of lost their homes and property in the earthquakes of 2011. And I remember we played at the Paradise in Botany Downs, and I think I scored my first goal on like my second shift on a tip in there, and I was very excited about that. But I think we won that game. I actually can't remember. I just remember feeling like we had at least had a chance. We weren't going to be the best team, we weren't going to be the worst team, but I at least felt like we had a chance.
Yeah.
And then our first games were away in Christchurch.
Yes.
And those games were pretty tough. Do you remember the first score of the first game?
Yeah, we lost the first game 4-3 in penalty shootout, I think it was.
In penalty shots.
Yeah. Let me check quickly. Yeah, it is. We had it was a draw after regulation, and then we had overtime, and then we lost in the penalty shootout against the Canterbury Red Devils.
Sorry, one sec, guys. I can edit this out. I appreciate our producer, Jamie.
I'm sorry.
No, this is good, Jamie. This is good.
I lost, didn't look up in time.
No, it's good. I think it's still working.
It's still recording.
Yeah.
The green light was on the whole time.
All right, that's good.
Lost.
That's helpful. I think this will
Yeah,
work.
there it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that first game, what I remember is we were, I remember having this feeling where I was like, shoot, like we're not going to be the best team.
Yeah.
Every game's going to be a battle. They had this kid, Chris Eden, on
Yep.
Christchurch, who was
Yep.
like excellent. I think he won the scoring title that year.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like, wow, like this might not go how I expected it to.
Mhm.
And then the second game, I remember I took a slap shot to the face,
Yes.
and I think I was out of that game in the very first period. I remember Leif Thompson came up to me after I took Chris Heaton's slap shot to the nose, and Leif kind of like picked me up, looked at me, saw like blood coming down and pouring from my nose, and
Yeah.
he got me off the ice. Sue Guess and the physios kind of patched me up, and then what happened once I went to the hospital after that?
No, the team just played their game and compared to the day before, totally different. Totally, as far as I remember, it was a total change. And I think again that starting the season off with that loss in overtime again reminded them they had to put a different gear on to be competitive, and they showed that then in winning 9-0 in that
9-0.
in that game was yeah, it was an incredible game. Yeah, we outshot them at 50, what does it say, 51 shots on net to 33.
Jeez.
Compared to the day before, it was pretty balanced.
And that was a
28.
shutout for our goaltender, Zach
Yeah,
Connolly.
yeah.
Big game. Yeah, I remember leaving the hospital with a couple stitches, getting back on the plane to head back to Auckland,
Yeah.
knowing that my teammates, got the W for us.
Yeah.
And even though, I was pretty hurt from the nose, was happy that we got the win. And
Josh Hay had a hat trick in that game.
Joshy Hay had a hat trick. Kid was super
And
fast.
all other
fast.
goals were scored by different players.
That's so what do you, as a coach, when you have a lot of different players that can score, how do you think about the lines and kind of the matchup? How does that change your perspective on the game when you have a lot of different players that are able to score?
It doesn't actually change the perspective. For me, it's for every coach's dream. If you have all players in all your lines can score goals, it's a dream. Then it becomes really a matter of your chemistry, and you can worry about starting about the small things, actually, about how many lefties, how many righties you have in your lineup and all that stuff. But that's a dream situation for New Zealand. So, but in that case, it was a dream that you get so many different players scoring goals, and even in the team, and that in the second game of the season. So that's very promising.
Do you remember what the third and fourth game, or any other specific games that kind of stand out to you on the schedule there?
I think there was that one game
because you and I watched a game. We had some highlights that Phil Lyle put together of a Dunedin game that we watched last night.
We had a double-digit win, which was
well. How did it start out, that Dunedin game that you?
We were down. We were down quite badly. I think we started slow. It was in Botany, I remember.
Yep, it was at home.
It was at home. We started very slowly. I think we were. Oh, here it is. It was a draw after the first period, based on the stats here.
Which is kind of crazy because Dunedin wasn't having as strong a season, and we were definitely the. Dunedin was the underdog.
Yeah, it was halfway through the season. It was when was it? In June, so it must be halfway through the season already. And then in the second period, they scored 2 quick goals, or funny goals against us.
They were funny goals. I remember.
I think there was one was on the glass, bouncing
it bounced off the back of the glass
and hit Secklin, Moseley on the back or something, or went in or something like that.
Yep.
So suddenly they were up by 3-1,
and how do you remember how you felt at that time when we were down? Were you discouraged?
I don't know how I felt. I think, this is so hard to remember. It's so long ago.
I remember how I felt. I felt like I'd been down with other teams, and I'd be a little disheartened, but I didn't feel a thing with this team. I felt super confident that we were going to come back. We had way more firepower, and I just remember feeling like I wasn't phased at all, and I remember thinking we just play our game and the goals will come.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really remember it, but I know for myself that sometimes you have these games where you don't play bad, but everything runs against you.
Sure.
And maybe that was maybe one of these games where I was thinking that. But I can't really say it was like that. I think Dunedin just played well at the beginning, and we
Sure.
were again maybe taking it too easy or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. Maybe.
Taking a while to get started.
Yeah, exactly. And then the guys exploded after that again because we were down by these 2 goals, and again I believe it was like that kick in again. No, we don't want that. No, we not losing this game.
Mm-hmm. And so then what happened?
And then you guys exploded. It's just like you scored. What was it they're saying here?
Read some of the things off the score sheet.
She's saying. So we ended up with 51 shots on goal.
Again, over 50 shots.
To 26.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second period, we had.
Who were some of the goal scorers?
Casey Ball, Charlie Huber, Casey Ball again. You was scoring. Siggy was scoring. Or Casey Ball had a hat trick in the period.
Hat trick in the period.
Wow,
nice Casey
yeah.
Ball.
Yeah, and you had 2 goals there. Yeah, you had 2 goals. Polozov had a goal. Yeah. And then the last goal in the third period was Charlie. Oh, no, there's Charlie. You again? Oh, you had a hat trick as well. You scored another goal.
So what was the final of that one?
12-3.
Yeah. So even though we were down 3-1,
yeah,
this was a team that didn't quit. And I think, as Ian Wanamaker said in an earlier promo video, never give up, never surrender, and always stick together. The game plan.
Yeah.
So
that was.
What was our getting into the playoffs? What was the record? Does it say kind of what the record was, or I remember we were like, how many wins and losses?
We had only a 1-game final in that.
Or like going into the playoffs, do you remember what our record was, or like at the end of the season, like how many wins and losses?
The end of the season, we had final ranking. We had 16 games overall. We had 12 wins, 1 overtime loss, and 3 regulation losses.
Wow.
And a goal differential of +50.
+50.
And 37 points. And then Stampede had 33 points. They were just a little bit behind us. So.
And then, well, it looks like 12 wins, 11 wins, and 10 wins. Who's got the 10 wins?
10 wins were Christchurch. Yeah.
Wow. So actually a little bit closer than I thought. I mean, everybody only separated by 1 win.
Yeah, Christchurch and Stampede were actually on the same points. 33.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. So it could have been a toss-up of who was making it to the final.
Correct. Yeah, I think it was the head-to-head decided that Stampede is.
So what do you remember about the Stampede team from the 2011 season?
They had a good senior team, good, strong individual team players. They had Brad Spears in there, which is still, I think, tough guy. Still for me, one of the icons of New Zealand ice hockey. Because I had the pleasure to coach him as well in Ice Blacks, and I always remember him. He was just a grinder. He was the kind of player he would never give up.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of other good. I can't remember the names, but there are a couple of other good players in that team as well, and stampeded that year. And Simon Glass was playing. Was playing, and the game in the final was actually pretty tight because we were leading first, and then in the second period, I think Stampede came back and they were leading, and the goals were scored, I think, by Simon Glass.
Yeah, who scored those goals? While you're pulling that up, I remember Glass and Spears specifically.
I remember it was a really good final. It was a tough final.
Yeah. Let's talk through the final, like who scored the first goal, and let's look at some of the stats.
Let's have a look.
I remember Spears hit when I first broke my nose, I had to put a cage on.
Yeah.
And I remember Spears gave me a big open ice hit that just kind of rattled me to my core. And him and Glass definitely let you know they were out on the ice. Yeah,
we were starting in the final, which is like a 1-game final in that year.
And so just to set the stage, I didn't know this. So basically the Stampede and the Red Devils had the exact same amount of points. So it came down to who won head-to-head. So the Stampede barely beat the Red Devils. It could have gone either way.
Correct.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that. Well, I know that we had our greatest rivalries against the Stampede that year. And so I'm kind of glad it was them, because it was definitely like definitely the hardest games. You weren't really sure who was going to win those games.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. They were always tough battles.
Always
against
tough
them.
battles. Yeah. So we lost 3 games in regulation. Well, we lost 1 in non-regulation, right? That was to the Red Devils in the very first game in overtime in the
Yes.
shootout.
Yes.
And I think at least 2 other games that we lost were against the Stampede, I would say.
No. Could be. We lost the first game against Canterbury,
Mhm.
and then Botany Swarm we lost against Stampede at home.
Yep. Those games are always tough. 'cause
One time, one we lost,
their
one we won
crowd
at home.
was so loud. Their students would bang on the
but that
on the
was in
bleachers.
Botany, so they took a 1 game
Oh,
away
okay.
in Botany, and
We didn't lose a lot of games at home, so that was a big deal.
yeah, we won the West Auckland Admirals, and then we had then we won the Friday game in Queenstown 4-1, and then we won both games in Queenstown.
Yeah, I remember that because that was at the end of that. Alexander Polzov got into a big fight. They kind of ran him, and we protected him. And then their fans, he kind of gave a motion to the crowd, and their fans started throwing like soda bottles at him, and he loved it. He didn't say much, but man, he loved getting into the competition.
Yeah, winning both games in Queenstown is quite a accomplishment.
That was a tough thing because they had a great hometown crowd.
We lost actually against Canterbury 1-0 at home.
I believe that.
We lost 1-0 against Canterbury.
That's
we lost
crazy.
at home. Yeah,
great,
it's crazy.
Great shutout for whoever the goalie was of Canterbury.
And then we lost again the next day. We lost, so we have a home weekend where we lost both games at home against Canterbury.
Wow.
We lost 4-2. So the 3 losses we had, or whatever, including the overtime or the penalty shootout loss, is against Canterbury.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that because I remember Stampede being our big rivals.
And then Stampede, the 1 game at home.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the final. Who struck first blood in the final? So I remember Stampede was coming, and I remember the night before that game thinking, man, we better play our A game because anybody can win that thing.
Yeah, of course.
This could go either way.
If you have a 1-game final, it's everybody's
final.
game. So it doesn't matter if you have the more talented team or not. You just have a good day, bad day, whatever.
Yep.
So let me see if I can find that here quickly. Yeah, so here we go. Yeah, we scored first. Josh Hayes scored in power play. The first goal.
I remember that. I remember that first goal was super important. I remember I'm pretty sure he got down on one knee off a face-off win from Jordan Chalice. He scored from the top of the circles, and I just remember there was so much tension in the air. The stands were packed, and that first goal just gave us that momentum that we needed to really get fired up and get the confidence that we've had the entire season. That was a huge first goal by Joshy Hay.
Yep, and then they came back pretty straight after. A minute and a half later, equalized it. Milivic.
I remember that.
And here it is. That's the guy. Yeah, Sisian, I think. There was.
I remember Milivic.
Yeah, they were both good players, and they scored the equalizer. And then second period, we had no action. We had only penalties, backwards and forwards.
Did anybody significant get a penalty? I think I got a penalty at some point. Was it the end of the second period?
No, Mike Summer got 2 times. Atwell got 1. Sisian, Lyle Idoine, and you got 1 at the end in the 40th minute.
Yeah, so what I remember that one because this is always kind of pained me at the very end. There was a little skirmish.
Yeah.
And I remember I did something silly. I was just like so fired up in the moment.
Yeah.
And I got a penalty as we were going into the locker room. So the penalty didn't even start yet. It was a total good call on the ref's part. And I remember I was walking in the tunnel and I was really mad at myself. And all of a sudden I feel a big push from behind. I turn around, it was Zach Notland. And he pushed me from the back and he said, that was the wrong time to take a penalty. And in the locker room between the second and third period, I remember feeling so much shame and just realizing that I needed to do something big to stand up, to get my teammates back in this thing, to make up for that stupid penalty.
Yeah, but there was one good example of how people keep each other accountable for their actions in the team.
Guys like Zach Notling and Andy Hay and Lyle Idoine, Richie Idoine, those guys did it the best, where they supported the coach, but also they'd had that experience together in 2010. They really set a great example for the import players and the younger guys, and we all did a great job of staying positive and really supporting each other.
Yep.
So no goals in the second period. So
No goals.
what's the score at this point?
1-1 after second.
Wow, 1-1 after.
It was 1-1 after.
So this is going to be a crazy third period because I know the final score, but what happened then?
Yeah, we survived. We killed off the penalty we just talked
Thank
about.
goodness.
Yeah, but 22 seconds later, we were playing 5-on-5. Simon Glass scored after Braden Lee assisted it and made it a 2-1 for.
So we're down.
We're down 2-1. Yeah.
Wow.
And but it didn't help long because the magic of Mr. Polozov
Mr. Polozov.
was succeeding here, and we made an equalizer at 45-14. So it's just
unassisted.
Unassisted.
A lot of his goals were unassisted.
Yeah, but the stats in New Zealand with the refs were not pretty accurate, per se. Because when you look at the statistics, there's not a lot
of assists. Yeah,
there's always you get one assist, but not a second assist.
Those refs tried but they did a great job for what they had.
That's just a learning curve.
So it's 2-2. Polozov scores a huge goal. I remember that.
And less than a minute later, Casey Ball scored the.
Casey Ball coming up
the
huge
3-2 after.
So a lot of lead changes, right? So the first lead change to go ahead,
we score the first,
another lead change, and then we tie, and then another lead change.
Yeah.
All right. So it's 3-2 Swarm at home in the third period.
That's the goal where the 3-2 where Casey scored was assisted by Martin Lee and Charlie Huber, and Martin was also an outstanding player in that team. So.
I loved playing with Marty. You know, me and Polozov and I played with a couple different people, and Marty and I really clicked. I thought he was a really great guy. He's coaching.
You know, he lives in Canada, I think.
Yeah, he lives in Canada, and he runs a hockey school right now. Yeah, and he was just such a great teammate, such a skilled player. He's one of those guys that didn't really look like he was trying that hard, and he was like kind of effortless in his moves, and he was like not trying that hard, meaning he was like fast, and he didn't look like, I felt like I looked like I was going all out. He was just like silky smooth and had like great hands, and I love being his line mate. Very selfless player.
Yeah, and then it was your moment to shine after that, because 5 minutes later we made it a 2-goal lead, and you scored that from assisted by Polozov.
So that goal I remember. So that's where I felt like I got some redemption for that stupid penalty, and I was glad Zach kind of got down on me for that one. and that one I remember. Polozov, just like a lot of goals, he took it all the way down the right side of the rink. He did his classic like stop and pull up move.
Yeah.
He did a little backhand pass. I was coming in the high slot. I don't even remember shooting it, but I grabbed it from the high slot and shot it top shelf. And I remember feeling so glad to kind of get the monkey off my back when we scored that one. How much time was left at that point?
That was scored at 51:46, so still over 8 minutes to go.
There was still a long time left.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I remember that being close to the end, but maybe it was just the third
and
period.
The coach, I think it was Shipu Reed was the coach for them at that year. Just let me check, but I think it was Stephen Reed was the coach. He took straight away a timeout after you scored.
He took a timeout. So we were winning. We were up 4-2
at that moment.
4-2. Okay, so we had 2-goal lead.
2-goal lead, yes.
From Polozov. Okay, all right.
And then the timeout helped them, because less than 3 minutes later, Brett Spears from Sissien and Mitchell Freer scored that third goal for them, or made it a 4-3 goal, 4-3 score.
With like 5 minutes left.
And then a little bit, 6 minutes, 54 and 2 seconds it was scored. So 5 minutes, 58 seconds left.
Okay. So now it's 4-3.
4-3 Swarm, yes.
5 minutes left.
5 minutes left.
Wow.
Yeah. It was still equalized goals, so all on 5-on-5.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and it says here at 57-51, Polozov scored his second goal for make it a 5-3.
So we
assisted by Jordan Chalice.
They pulled their goalie.
No, I don't. No? Doesn't say here. No goaltender pull here at 57-51.
Wow. So that must have been even strength.
It's not. It's not been recorded as a goalkeeper would been pulled.
I remember.
I don't think it was an empty net goal.
I remember after it was 4-3. I do remember feeling very, very confident, because I feel like we were dominating them. And then obviously when Polozov scored that final goal in the third period, because I feel like what made our team special is that I think most teams in the NZIHL that year had a good top six. You could argue they had at least a good top 5, top 6, but I think our third line really set apart because we really didn't have three lines. I remember some games our first line was the worst and our third line was the best. And because on our first line, I think for
Again,
most of the
the
season,
consistency I talked about before.
that's right, the balance and the depth.
balance, yeah.
Yeah. So we had Josh Hay, Jordy Chalice, and Charlie Huber on that first line.
Yeah.
Second line, Marty. It was Atwell and Marty Lee at different points of the season. Myself centering Paul's off, and then Ziggy, Ian Wanamaker, Casey Ball, which is like if that's your third line, Casey Ball, Ian Wanamaker, and Ziggy, like that's a pretty
good line.
You're going to have a pretty good chance of winning a lot of games.
But we made it a little bit interesting at the end because Josh Hay decided to have like a tripping call.
How much time left?
58-20.
All right, so we're down.
A minute
we're
40.
winning 5-3, and we take a penalty.
Yeah.
Well, we can't fault Josh too much. I don't really remember that.
So I took a timeout.
You took a timeout. Okay,
Yeah.
smart.
Maybe
coach.
I just to
reset everybody.
Yeah. Make sure you got the right four guys out, and just a couple of hints about not to getting too aggressive and just protect the middle of the ice or stuff like that.
Yep.
And it worked out, and then the game was over. So there's no goaltender pull recorded at all, which to be honest, I can't remember if they did or not.
They had to have, but maybe it didn't. They didn't record. They didn't record. So what were the final shots?
Final shots on net was we had 47 and they had 24.
So what does that tell you when you see sort of an imbalance of shots like that, but such a close game goal wise? How does that make you feel?
If we consider the consistency or inconsistency of shots on net statistic of New Zealand ice hockey, however, how good or how bad the statistic is, say if it's recorded badly, it's recorded badly on both sides. If it's recorded good, it's recorded on good.
Fair.
It shows we always had high shots on net, but as you know, shots on net is not always, it's the quality of shot of net.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the league or in that environment, we are in that level.
Yeah.
Any shot on net is a good shot.
Yep.
Because something it creates chaos, it creates confusion, you need to react. You have the right skill to clear the in front of the net or whatever. So for New Zealand hockey, I always think a shot on net is a good shot because.
And what I remember from that is
you create something. You create panic. You create pressure.
And what I remember is Ovechkin just scored his.
Did he?
Holy cow! From his office too. Wow.
So it's
take a little break
now,
here. I think it's 5 maybe.
Is it 8-9 now?
They're gonna show it here. 4 minutes left to tie the game, just like Alexander Polozov, those sneaky Russians. He loves it.
Be careful, he's not Russian, he's Estonian.
Oh, that's right, he's Estonian.
But I think he has a Russian. Dad is Russian.
Yeah.
Let's see how much is left.
Good for you, Ovi. Right from his office.
Oh, 7 left. 6 left.
Okay, now it's 6.
6
you cannot leave him open right there. That's where he makes his money because his son sits right there in the crowd. Wow, what a pass. Just off his stick. Yeah, very Polozov-like. Good for him. So, but what I remember why all the shots were so lopsided is because I just feel like we were a very tough team to play against because I remember we had the puck a lot. The puck was almost always on our stick. We almost had the puck in the other team's defensive zone a lot. And I felt like a lot of times the ice was just a little slanted down towards the other team. Did you ever get that sense that year?
No, I think, I don't know. You'd be always critical of the coach.
Fair. That's good.
Yeah, I think you cannot be, what's the name, complacent as a coach?
Complicit. Yeah.
You're always looking for better. You're always looking for be better, do this differently, be faster. Don't do this, don't handle whatever you want to do. I think if you don't do this, then you're not striving, pushing your team, getting better.
So let's talk about, a great team win. We celebrated our butts off. I think we partied for like a week straight after that.
I went to work back on Monday morning.
me and Ziggy definitely, with Dion and a couple other guys, we definitely had some good times though. But let's talk. So it was a great team effort. Great leadership from the more experienced veteran players on the team, like I mentioned, Andy Hay and some of those guys. What do you remember about the individual efforts that season? Like, let's take Polizov. What is there anything specific you remember about him, or maybe just you've coached him a lot? What kind of player is he, or what makes him special?
What he makes him special, or he's such a committed individual person in for playing hockey, and he's a natural talent and athlete. It's unbelievable. I mean, we went to the gym or anything like that. It's just like he is just. I call him the machine. He is a machine. He is just, and he still plays today, and he's still like, how old is he now? Like, I think he's the same age as you or something. I don't know, but he is just like still like strong like a horse, and
I remember
he's just like he was just a role model, in my opinion, for where he came from, what he did from Estonia. When I met him first time, I remember when I met him first time in Estonia, in Narva, which is on the border to Russia. He had long hair. I still remember that.
Long hair.
Yeah, he had long hair, and we talked, and Grant Hay was there and everything, and we talked about in the ice rink, and he said, "Oh, I'm coming to New Zealand," and I was thinking, yeah, it's another one of these guys that says, "Yeah, I'm coming to New Zealand," and then suddenly he stands.
He's on your team.
He's on the team, yeah, and he was always great.
He's pretty unstoppable. I remember you're talking about his physical fitness.
Yeah, but also as a personality, he was just such a calm personality. What do you call it? Oh. He was not self-centered at all. He was all about
selfless.
He was selfless.
Yeah.
He was always helpful to players. Always nice. He was just a great person.
Yeah, we did our physical. You made us do the physical fitness in the tests in the beginning of the year. We would always max out.
Thanks,
and I remember
nothing for your gym.
Thank you, Zach. And we, he had his shirt off, and he was completely cut and ripped, a 6-pack, 8-pack, whatever.
Still is today.
And the TV show Jersey Shore had just started to get popular back in 2011. So there was a guy named The Situation who also had the 6-pack. So we started calling Polizov The Situation. I remember we had pull-ups, and I think I did the most pull-ups I've ever done in my life. I think I did 14. I was in extremely good shape, and I was like really proud of myself. And then I think Polizov got up there and did like 28 or 29 and just like doubled everybody else's score. And we're like, who is this? What lab was this guy creating?
Yeah, exactly.
And playing with him was just, it was super, super special. Yep. Continuing on with the imports, what do you remember about my roommate and my good friend? Ziggy, Joachim Sigvald.
Ziggy was great because you could see that the Swedish influence. The stick handling skills,
great hands,
the finesse with the hands, and also the skating was just great. So that was great because Ziggy wasn't a very physical big player. He was a
shorter guy.
He was shorter than you, I think.
Shorter than me, but
yeah. But he had it in his eyes, and he knew what's going on, and it's just like, yeah,
super good vision. And Ziggy and I would get home from our practices, and Ziggy, remember, we'd make chicken fingers and fries and in the oven,
all the healthy food.
all the healthy food, and we'd listen to Tenacious D going to the games, and we watched Dexter at night. But what I remember most is there was Phil Lyle put together these highlight videos. It was like the second game, and we were all looking to get in these highlight videos. And Ziggy had a slap shot from the point that went in the highlight video, and he also had a huge hit on a guy that was also in the highlight video. And I remember being very, very jealous. Ziggy got so much airtime in those highlights. He well deserved though. Well deserved.
Oh yeah.
Talk about some of the players. So we talked about some of the imports. Talk about some of the players that you've been coaching for a while and that were pretty successful. That had been with the Swarm for a couple of years. Some of the veteran players that you relied on as a coach to kind of make sure that the team ran smoothly. Who are some of those kind of standout veterans?
Oh, the standouts were definitely the Hayes, like Josh Hay, Andrew Hay of course, as the captain.
Andy Hay.
Josh Hay with his speed and also relentlessness. He was
relentless is a great word.
Yeah, was very physical. We had Richard and Lyle Idoine. I mean, Lyle was just a huge, big guy on the
Yeah, he
ice,
was.
and
Big
but
shot, big
but
slap
yeah,
shot too.
but he also could move his body, so that was great.
He was tough to get around
Yeah,
for sure in
and
practice. Yep.
same as Richard. Richard was also not small, but not super big, but he could skate and he was just a great defender. Of course, then we had Casey Ball, which came from Canada, so he knew hockey like for you US guys. It's just
He had
normal
a very
normal.
calm demeanor, but man, he scored a lot of goals.
Yes, yes.
Do you have the stats on that or no?
No, I don't have it
We'll
right.
go to that later.
Yeah,
I remember Casey scored some big goals, and every goal he scored was it seemed like such a calm goal, and he scored some big ones for us.
then we had a couple of younger guys coming up, like Jordan Chalice was very
Jordy
young at that
Chalice,
time.
love that kid, such a nice kid.
We had Jared Wood was an up and coming junior player, which
remember Jared.
maybe didn't play a lot, but it was in there. We had a veteran there from the Ice Blacks, Corey Down.
Corey, yep.
Yep,
Played
he
a
played
couple
that year
games.
for the Swarm. We had the young Jabba in there as a backup goaltender.
Yeah.
I don't know how old he was at the time, but he must have been 16 or something at that
Yeah.
time, I would think. Something
Yeah.
like that, maybe. Dion was playing. We had Sam Moses, then later switched over to the Admirals because he was also a third or fourth liner at that time, what it is. We had Ian Wanamaker, which is also a Canadian in the team. So
Ian was a great leader
with
too.
leadership skills there. So
I remember Ian invited Ziggy and I over to his house and early on, and he really kind of helped the import players kind of get settled, and yeah, Ian was a great teammate, great player.
Then we had Michael Atwell, which was also very young at that time.
Mikey.
Yeah.
Strong. That kid had a good fitness too.
He's still strong to that day.
He really took fitness seriously.
And he's captain now, I think.
That's great.
That's
awesome.
This year.
He deserves it. You deserve it, Mikey.
2025. And yeah, we had Keegan Harnett. Remember Keegan?
I remember Keegan.
Yeah, but I don't know where they are these days. I lost contact. You remember Alex Lishkov?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, defenseman. Yep.
Yeah.
He was a nice kid too.
He was such a nice kid.
Yeah.
He was just he was happy to be there. In my opinion, he was happy to be there. Any opportunity he get, he was really appreciated.
He's a role player. He would play whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't the biggest talent, not the the best skill guy and everything, but he did his best. So like Dion as well. Dion was maybe not the best defender, but I think
he worked his ass off.
He tried always when he was always trying to give his personal best.
And he was physical too. I remember Ziggy and I went to watch him at a rugby game.
Yeah.
And I think he broke some kid's nose, and I just remember Dion. I think he's doing triathlons now. He's running his
ass off.
He was jacked back then, and I remember he was a freight train in front of the net. If you were in front of his goaltender, you'd be pushed out pretty quick.
And then I remember the most fascinating player for me was always Leith Thompson.
Leith.
Because
oh my gosh.
In my opinion, Leith was always the one. He had the skills. I think he had the skills. He had the skating, but to get him fitter and stronger, it was just like he doesn't. From my point of view, I think he gave a shit.
He did.
But when he was on the ice, he always managed all right.
He reminds me of like a Drew Doughty, where he doesn't need to be the fittest player on the ice.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
He just made it happen somehow. And Leith, I always appreciated him. After I broke my nose, I only missed one practice, and that was the practice where Leith took me back to his house and got me a cage. And then we drove back to practice. So Leith, thanks for helping me out and getting me that cage that season. I forgot.
Yeah, and again, going through that list, it's just such a good mix of players, like senior players, a little bit more mature players, and younger players. And then you have a couple of guys like Leith. He's kind of the I would think he was one of the clowns in the team, maybe the
comic relief.
Yeah,
not because everybody respected him, but during those heavier moments, he brought a lot of levity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you need these kinds of people in the team. You can't have 25 super serious guys in there. It's not working.
Yeah.
Even so, if you as a coach, it drives you nuts sometimes.
Yeah.
which he did. And yeah, but
Oh, Jamie brings up a good point here.
oh yeah, that's right. He had this massive boombox. They always took everywhere with them.
When you say
every
massive,
away,
how big are we talking
it
here?
was like this wide and I think this tall. It was
Yeah.
like these, like when you know from the 80s when breakdance came on and they had these ghetto blasters on their shoulders walking around. That was the kind of thing he had. I remember.
And we would take it on
And
the
I think
planes.
Siggy took it or sometimes.
No,
in an
we
aeroplane.
all took turns
Oh, you all
taking
took
it. We
turns.
all took
Oh,
turns.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember yeah, we'd take it on the plane with us, and everyone would pick out the music that they want. Music is a very important part of the locker room, and,
Oh,
and if the vibe
you need
is hot in the
You need it.
locker room, you've got good music, and Leaf provided that with that boombox. Yeah, that was definitely his like signature. Yeah, brought a lot to the team. So, all right, well, this has been great. I think we've touched on the score of the final, kind of how the season went.
Yeah.
The final, we finished what, 16-3-1, I think, or 15-3-1 maybe.
What do you mean the overall season?
The overall record for that year. No, it was 12-3.
12 wins, 1 overtime loss, 3 losses.
Yeah, 12-3-1. And talked about the individual players. Are there any other moments? So how did it feel for you to, was that your what championship was that? Was that number 4 for
It
you?
was the last one, yeah.
That was number 4. So what did it mean to you as a coach of the Swarm that year, winning your 4th championship with a lot of the guys that had kind of been with you since the beginning?
It can't get better than that. I think when you have a group like this, when you coach them for 6 years, and you manage and then 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7 seasons, and the majority of these young kids coming up there and they're winning the championship 4 times. What else can you say? It's the best feeling, the best achievement as a coach you can have, I think, especially in a league where you have 5 teams. Or at that time we had 5 teams. In 2007 and 8 we only had 4 teams. And I think as smaller the league is, it's harder actually to win the championship because you have one slip up and it can cost you everything. Because you don't have another 20 games.
Smaller margin of error.
Yeah, I think maybe not, but it feels like that.
Well, there was definitely a lot of parity in the league. You know, the fact that the Swarm had 12 wins and or we had whatever points and the Red Devils Stampede were right next to us.
11 straight wins.
Those top 3 teams, it could have really gone either way. So a lot of parity.
Yeah.
We needed a lot of consistency throughout the season.
Correct.
And for me personally, you know, going down and just being on the Swarm, being with that group of guys, being led by Andy Hay and the whole first line, being such great teammates and friends with and roommates with guys like Ziggy, and getting to hang with Dion as much as I did, and then obviously being put on a line to center Alexander Paul's, the best player in the league, was I thank you all the time for that, because that really made my whole New Zealand experience as great as it was. So, Coach, I think I can speak for everybody on that 2011 team. Say thank you for all that you did for us and leading us to that championship. And we appreciate your time today, and appreciate you giving your perspective on the season.
Yeah, just a note: we had an average age of 22 years of age.
22.
22.
See, I was 25 then, so, and I think
22.
Andy Hay was like 50. Sorry, Andy, just kidding, buddy. But good young team, Coach.
Yep. And then you compare that to, just as a last fact, to the Stampede. What's their average age? Come on, give me that. It's just because I picked that up. It's not showing you that here.
Well, I think that we did a great job of closing this out. I do want to end with one story though. I think there's a lot of times when players are able to kind of poke fun at their coach, and we never really could poke fun at you because you had this very serious German sort of exterior, and I think the team did a good job of kind of leading us in all the pregame rituals and the rugby ball toss and things, the clap game, as we called it. But I do remember this particular time when there was a new rule change coming from the league in the middle of the season. And Coach had this piece of paper and he was reading this rule. And essentially the rule change was that if you're on the ice and your helmet comes off while you're playing, you don't stop and go back and pick up your helmet. And as coach was reading this to us, we're all in practice, everybody's taking a knee all in front of him, and he's reading from the piece of paper, and he's like, if you lose your helm, don't pick up your helm, leave your helm. And we're all kind of looking at each other as he's saying this, and we're like, what is a helm? And we had no idea. And eventually we realized he meant helmet. But from that point on through the rest of the season, I remember Leith and Andy and those guys, oh, Moseley, don't forget your helm. Grab your helm. If you leave it in the stall, you make sure you wear your helm. Don't leave your helm. So, Coach, thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate you. And
you should encourage all the players to have more stories. They have more stories like
and
that.
if you have more stories on Coach Kaisser, tweet them and put them on your own YouTube channel because we'd like to hear from. So thanks for being such a big part of my hockey career, Coach.
No problem.
And
Thanks.
love you, buddy.
No worries.
Love you.
Pleasure.
Good seeing you, man.
Thanks for having us.
Say hi, Jamie. Oh man, we didn't run out of juice. Amazing.
That's good.
Dude, thanks so much.
No worries.
That's what I wanted.
That was good.
I think it was good.
No, even I remember that was Leaf's boombox. Like, and you guys were talking about his personality, and I feel like that boombox to me is his personality.
Absolutely.
And I was like, you need to say this.
He also has like a big chain and everything.
Yeah, and I was like, I feel like that really just kind of shows the type of person he was.
Also has 5 goals to equalize for the 3 losses we had.
Quality, perfect. Man,
I just hear my own voice. Jesus.
it's good.
Yeah, it always sounds worse to you, but it's normal.
It does. It is normal.
Like,
That's what you sound like.